All what's going on, people? Episode number 6, Conscious Approach Podcast. Dogon back here, JV. Wanted to get into this thing with the NFL and the $89 million that it is pledging to social causes. Did some background research, or if you watch ESPN, I've been looking at SI or anything like that. $89 million is the overall number, and it's supposed to span 7 years, and you can break that down in terms of how much per year or how much per month. But I wanted to talk about it because I kind of have mixed emotions about the whole thing. Um, Overall, I'll say this. Overall, I think it's good. It's a positive thing that there is an organization who has decided to afford financial resources to whatever we're talking about here, because this whole thing is kind of ambiguous. You say social justice causes, there's a certain lack of specificity that has kind of clouded this entire conversation. Because are you talking about racial inequality? Are you talking about police brutality? Are you just talking about trying to stem the tide of poverty? Are you talking about criminal justice reform? What is it that you're talking about specifically? And maybe as we move into the future, some of those things will be made more clear. But I think the progress of some of this can be stymied when you lack specificity sometimes. But be that as it may, overall, I think it's a positive thing that there is a company, an organization, who has said we're going to pledge this much money. Just even though they're doing it because some pressure is being applied to them. But sometimes it just works that way. But having said that, I'm a bit bothered. There was a part of this that always rubbed me the wrong way, that a multi-billion-dollar corporation was being made the poster child for social justice reform. I felt like the arena for that was inappropriate because we're talking about big business in sports. We're talking about football, and you might want to argue that no matter what the arena is, you got to do what you got to do to bring light to it. So if the NFL happens to be the stage for that, then so be it. But they're going to approach this from a business standpoint. They're gonna look at this like a corporation, and they're going to say what is in the best interest of our bottom line as it pertains to this whole thing. And what do most corporations do? They throw money at it to make it go away. That's what this kind of looks like. It looks like $89 million is being thrown at social justice reform to kind of make it go away so that we can get back to the business of football. In that regard, I cannot blame the NFL for that if that is the ideology, because if I run a multi-billion-dollar corporation, I am going to say, what is it that I can do to sort of make this go away, to make it stop? It just never sat well with me that the NFL was sort of becoming a beacon for social justice reform in America. And so now we're pointing the finger at old, rich, white owners and the NFL constituency and holding them accountable for this American problem instead of holding accountable people who are in the actual right positions to affect this change, but really are kind of apathetic when it comes to trying to change it for real. And I'm talking about elected officials, public figures, civil servants, your local mayors and governors, and those people. These are the people who we should be looking at and talking about reshaping the very face of what it is to be, of what criminal justice is, and that kind of stuff. So what I'm saying, that kind of bothers me. And then another thing that rubbed me the wrong way was it kind of perpetuates the notion that in order to reach people in a way that makes them compassionate about helping black or brown people, that you have to do it within the context of sports, because that's the only lane with which you can make people care about black people, is to sort of challenge sports and athletics, because that's what our worth is sports and athletics. Nothing else, nothing intrinsically valuable to progressing the human race. It's just okay, well, these people who get paid millions of dollars to shoot basketballs and throw footballs and run with footballs, that's what they're good for. And so if the people in that lane are doing the complaining, then maybe we should listen, because that's the only time that we actually value what their perspective is within the context of sports. Does that make sense?
No, I see what you're saying.
So I don't know. I have an issue with that. Be that as it may, I will say this: whatever comes of this, there are some positives to it. There are some negatives from my perspective, but we've talked about this before. I do think that in order for you to cease to be a disenfranchised person, or in order for an entire group of people to cease to be a disenfranchised people, is not through trying to change what I don't know can be changed. It's through the acquisition of resources. That's just what I think. I think that you can either try to change the system, or you can try to position yourself in such a way that you can be removed from it, and therefore not as heavily subjected to the oppressive nature of it. And I think the way that you remove yourself from it is to acquire resources so that you don't have to exist within it. The people who are the most heavily subjected to these things that we're talking about are people who have to exist within that ecosystem because they have no other choice. They don't have the financial capital, the resources, or the knowledge to remove themselves from that. This is a little symbolic of that, because if you're pouring money into something, maybe you can create lanes with which people can acquire resources so that they can remove themselves from what we've come to characterize as social injustices,
right.
Whatever the hell that means.
Right.
So, that was pretty much it.
All right. Well, and I agree with what you're saying, and I 100% agree that it's a business move, it's a PR move, and it looks good when you break the numbers down.
Yeah.
And so when you break it down, it come out to 12.7 million a year. And so basically a little bit over $1 million a month for 7 years. That don't look bad on paper, And so the NFL is, look, we had this whole melee about the whole anthem and all of that stuff. But we see our fault in it, and we're doing something about it, and we're donating to social injustices, right? And so I guess the players may have their own organizations or whatever, nonprofits or whatever that's going to get donated to or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's going to be some type of thing. In any event, it's just fine PR, like you said, it's good business work. And but it just so happened to be the NFL because of the whole Kaepernick situation. And we spoke about it before about athletes and rappers being the champions of our people.
Yeah.
And so when we look at number 25, whoever he is, he's everything to somebody, and we want you to say something, number 25, and he so happened to be on the board. He's doing what he can within his job to make sure that little Billy is happy. And when everybody can watch football games now and just be like, hey, look, the NFL's doing something about it, so let's just squash this shit. Let's just get back to football. And but as far as these owners and all this stuff, these obligations, again, this is social justice reform does have to happen. And unfortunately, a lot of people pay attention to sports.
Yeah.
It's just what everybody's valuing, their time and energy in. And even myself, even somebody who calls themselves conscious or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be paying attention to sports. I still donate a large chunk of my energy to it.
Yeah.
So since that's going on, it is what it is. It's just an American dynamic. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see anything wrong with what the NFL did. I feel like they're just doing like you said, what corporations do. I just feel like the underbelly of all of this is that what am I saying? As far as like Kaepernick and this whole thing that got sparred and all this other, I just feel like all of this stuff is just distraction based anyway. It's not it has no relevance towards anything,
Yeah.
and everything got lost out of context. There's nothing. I don't even know what's going on anymore with any of that stuff. So the whole fact that the NFL can sit here and and do what they did, I feel like, I feel like hats off to all of this. So now I can just get back to football, honestly. But if people are mad, if people are mad at the whole, if people are mad at any of this, if people are mad at Kaepernick, people are mad at the NFL or whatever, like you said, it's all about the acquisition of resources or assets. And so if a lot of ifs, but if players, fans, and everybody alike really just said, hey man, let's all just go to historically black colleges. You know, if I'm a 5-star recruit, 4-star recruit, let me just go to HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
That can start something.
Yeah, and I think something like that would start something.
Yeah, that would start a wave of action. That's no more ifs or whatever. That's doing. And now you're a 5-star athlete at some HBCU. You didn't go to Kentucky for 1 year. You went over here, and then now y'all done ran through people through the tournament.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So something like that, you just gonna leave 1 year anyway. So it's not about the academics.
Yeah, that would completely change the paradigm of college athletics, because then those schools would actually become powerhouses because the best players are going there.
Right. HBCUs were when black people were only allowed to play at HBCUs, they used to run everybody.
Yeah.
They whooped everybody's ass,
Yeah.
and it would continue.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing is just, I'm just saying, it's a practicality thing, because it's a lot of, we do a lot of ifs when we do all of this stuff. But the practical side of all of this is that, what is an action that we can take? And so, like you said, how can these players make sure that, the reform happens outside of the gates of the NFL, is by doing stuff practically in the streets. You know what I'm saying? I'm not asking NFL players to do it, but the people who are asking them to do it, they need to go out there and do it.
Right.
And it's an I thing. Everything is about what am I doing? And so any reform starts with I.
Mm-hmm.
And so what am I doing to change this?
Yeah.
This narrative. And that's basically all of it. So I say to a young player out there who's like, hey man, is it Kentucky? Is it Ohio State? Go to Grambling.
Mm-hmm.
That fixed all of that. And then get all your little buddies that you play AAU with to go to Grambling. And then y'all just run it. Y'all had a best intramural team. Y'all be running everybody. Then they'll regret having y'all on the schedule that year. I'm telling you, man. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. But what do you gotta say as far as like?
Yeah, I think that what is lost in all of this is, well, not necessarily what is lost, but what adds to the confusion behind stuff like this, and what sort of contributes to a lack of progress is a lack of specificity. Let's talk specifically about what it is that we want to see change. Now, of course, I'm not a presence in those meetings with the owners and the players, so I don't know what they were talking about. But those meetings were now weeks ago, and there's still no specificity attached to this plan. And during this period in which there is a lack of specificity attached to the plan, there's more distraction and there's more of a shroud around the NFL, because guys are continuing to protest because what they want to see done isn't being done in their eyes. And the reason why that is, and the reason why what they want to see done isn't being done in their eyes is because no one is being specific about what we want to see done. There's a lot of minuscule agendas trickled throughout this entire thing, and it's convoluting the overall message. No one knows what anybody wants with this.
That's what I'm saying.
No one knows.
Yeah,
and so what do we want to see change, and why do we feel as though it's appropriate to hold the NFL responsible? Right. I mean, that's the stage that it's on, but nevertheless, they're just going to approach this in such a way that they're going to window dress it and try and find methodologies for silencing the noise.
Yeah.
And if you're content with that being the solution, in terms of the context for the NFL, you need to understand going in that that is not going to fix the problem. So it is incumbent upon you to take whatever resources that they're providing you to, you better make sure that you're specific about what it is that you want, because they're going to give this money to you so that you can fix problems in your community however you see fit. And if those problems still persist, then at that point we can't continue to talk about kneeling and injustices, because it's on you. Right. And if it doesn't get rectified at that point, guys can't continue to be kneeling for the NFL. And just creating the perception that the NFL is sort of kind of the personification for what's wrong with America.
Right, and I agree, but the NFL is America.
Mm-hmm.
So the irony of the whole protest was that you're in the construct of what you're protesting.
Absolutely, yep, that's 100% right.
It was just ridiculous from the beginning.
Yeah.
I was never behind that in the first place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you really wanted to protest, you wouldn't play.
Yeah.
But then you have a contractual obligation,
and you want to get paid,
right?
Yeah.
And you have, unless you get sued,
yeah,
you better go out there and play, boy.
Mm-hmm.
You are owned.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole dynamic, I see what it was, because I spoke about it earlier as far as them being champions to people.
Mm-hmm.
So as them being champions, people's like, do something, you're my champ. So they're like, ah. And so they're doing what they can, and they're doing protests of how they were taught to do protests.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're just following right in line, and it never made sense. All forms of protest that they've been telling us to do aren't effective, and they aren't efficient. That's why they tell us to do it.
Yeah.
And so now when you see NFL players on this grand stage in 2017, and we're like, hey, bro, it's 2017. You're a man. This is the stage. Do what you need to do. And then he does that, take a knee. It's like a sit-in.
Yeah.
It's the same dynamic. You're going to just sit there and get bashed over the head by people who don't want you there? Mm-hmm. What's wrong with you? That's not protest. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. So I say, so when I brought up the HBCU thing, it's the same dynamic, where if you play at an HBCU and then, you mess around and start playing in the Master P League after that, it is what it is. Uh-huh. But if the 2021 LeBron is playing in the Master P League, everybody's going to be watching that.
Yeah.
And then the Derrick Rose of 2024, and he plays at HBCU, all the other guys are going to want to play with him. It's going to shift the paradigm, shift how we do things.
Yeah.
And once we shift out of this old way of doing things, because that old way never wanted you.
Mm-hmm.
So once you switch out of that old way, you can see that there's a whole lane for you to go create and do what you want to do. Everybody banks off our entertainment. Just create a bank so you can do your own entertainment.
Yeah. You own the bank.
You own the bank.
Yeah.
You are the bank.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the crux of the whole thing, is that at the end of the day, we can scream to the high heavens about all of the stuff that we want changed, but we don't own. Therefore, the ultimate arbiters of change are going to be people who aren't us.
Right.
Because we're asking people who are not us to provide their resources to what it is that's going to help us, because we don't have those resources for ourselves.
Right.
I think that you're right. I think if you just change the mentality and make the impetus for the way that you want to go about change, acquiring your own resources, mm-hmm. so that you can build your own school, mm-hmm. and you start your own sports league, God willing.
Right.
Or at the very least, let's just start with somebody getting in there and you get your own franchise in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Or in the NBA. It's damn near about, I don't see that ever happening. But the point that I'm trying to make is just like, if we acquired our own resources so that everything is Javis Ogden Inc., mm-hmm. and then I don't sell it mm-hmm. to a vampire mm-hmm. who's going to turn it into something else, but I ran away with my boatload of money, then at that point I can use that as my vessel with which to affect real change, because I am providing my own resources however I see fit.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just the whole thing with this, but, God willing, some positive will come out of this. Just the cynic in me says, I don't know if that's the case. Nevertheless, $89 million. being provided for social justice reform. I really want to see that defined in a dictionary somewhere. I don't know what that means.
It means go away. Equal sign, just leave me alone. Equal sign, leave me alone. That's what it says.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and leave that there. Be sure to check out the website consciousapproach.com. Look us up on YouTube. Look for the blue brain logo with the shaking hands. That's us. You can find me on Instagram at JVWins, on Twitter at Javis Ogden. Check out my boy here at Dogon_SS on IG. He has a lot of things coming down the pike musically, and his IG is lit on that side.
It's on fire.
Yeah.
Bro.
It's fuego. So y'all got to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so until next time, keep it logical. We out.